Good morning, everybody. The show is called the Big R Solution Sports Program. My name is the Sobre Boys Walefatsi, together with Ntwentle, Jacob Selematsela. And then today we'll also be joined by Advocate. Remember, we have been talking about the case of Sikukune, Royal AM, Polokwane City, all that all those issues. So we want to see how far is the case now. The advocate will outline what's happening. So that is our first part of the show this morning. And then later on, we'll be discussing the show in detail. There's quite a lot happening. Jeggy, welcome to the show, and please welcome the viewers.
Thank you very much, Tao. Thank you very much to the advocate for being with us, and thank you very much at home. Good morning to everyone, and I hope we're going to be enjoying our show today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jackie. Advocate, welcome to the show.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you once again for inviting me. I hope that we will have at least a little bit of a light in terms of the developments in this matter. But I think it's important that we need to start from where this whole matter started, the genesis of this whole issue. If you recall, on the 2nd of January, 2021, that's when this whole fracas started. On that day, that was a day that Sikukuni United were scheduled to play a match against Polokwane City, if you all recall. And that's where this whole shenanigans started. Reasons being, there might have been some problems in respect of fielding of players, under 23 players, and stories about reasons not fielding those players arising out of COVID-19, etc., etc. So that is the beginning of the whole issue. But if you recall, in that game, Polokwane City won 1-0 against Sikukuni. So naturally, if a team wins, they have to be accorded 3 points. So unfortunately, there was a protest at that point in time. And now the issue had to be decided at the disciplinary committee of the PSL. And this is the part that is very, very, very critical, which I would like the viewers to understand properly. There were 2 disciplinary proceedings under the auspices of the PSL. The first one was handled internally. And the outcome of the first disciplinary process was that Polokwane City were guilty of failing to field the required number of under 23 players. And as a result, you must listen very carefully. As a result, 3 points were deducted. And those 3 points that were deducted were not awarded to any team. It's very important that you should understand the outcome of the first disciplinary proceedings that were handled under the auspices of the PSL. The 3 points that were deducted were not awarded to any team. Now, Sikukuni United were aggrieved by the fact that they were not awarded those 3 points. So they therefore utilized the internal processes within the PSL to appeal the decision of the initial disciplinary committee. And that is when the PSL then appointed senior counsel Epstein to deal with that particular appeal that was raised by Sikukuni. And that is where senior counsel Epstein, in his decision, decided to award the 3 points to Sikukuni United. So I think you need to understand that there were 2 processes that occurred within the auspices of the PSL at that point in time. One being that 3 points were deducted, but they were not awarded to any team. And after an appeal by Sikukuni, senior counsel Epstein decided that those 3 points should be awarded to Sikukuni.
Now, hold it there, Advocate. Now, what does the book rule of PSL saying as far as that is concerned? That if you deduct the 3 points, what should happen to that 3 points? If I can get clarity, what does it say?
Yeah, no, look, the NSL handbook, if you recall, the NSL handbook, that's why it's called the NSL. It's a book that deals with procedures that relate to disciplinary proceedings in relation to PSL matters. That book, remember, it was designed during the period of the NSL, and that is why it's still called the NSL handbook. But now, to answer your question precisely, the handbook, although it anticipated that there might be disciplinary proceedings of that nature, it does not specifically indicate that upon deduction of 3 points, such 3 points must be awarded to another team. It is silent on that. And I'm glad that you are asking that question, because that is the PSL's contention.
All right.
That is why the PSL, immediately after the decision was made by Senior Counsel Epstein, they then released a statement, if you recall, criticizing Senior Counsel Epstein's ruling. And in their criticism, in fact, in their view, they indicated that ruling by Senior Counsel was not correct, and that it had the potential of creating uncertainty in relation to the discretion that is accorded to the PSL disciplinary committee. So in other words, what the PSL was arguing is that the disciplinary committee, under its auspices, does not have authority to award points, but rather to punish by way of deducting points. I hope you understand where I'm coming from.
No. Let's get it clear. The NSL book, says it is silent where the 3 points should go.
Exactly.
Now, Epstein said, okay, I take 3 points, but he never awarded anyone. Now,
no. Let me correct it.
Yeah, that's what
Epstein Senior Counsel. Epstein Senior Counsel.
Yeah.
What he did is that he acted on an appeal that was lodged by United subsequent to the PSL disciplinary committee having made a decision, to the effect that 3 points were deducted, but they were not awarded to any team.
Okay.
Now, when Senior Counsel Epstein came in, dealing with that matter for the second time within the auspices of the PSL, awarded the 3 points to Sekhukhune.
Good. While you're still there, this is what now, not in pertaining to this case, what is the general practice in football? I'm talking to world football. If they take 3 points from you, do they award to somebody else, or do they hang in just like they hang in?
Yeah, remember, that is, you see, the question that you are raising, it raises a response from the perspective of the PSL, because what the PSL is saying is that the ruling by Senior Counsel Epstein has a potential of creating some form of precedence which never existed before. If you recall, teams have been disciplined before. Points have been deducted.
Yeah.
But my recollection, I don't recall any particular single incident where after those 3 points were deducted, they then had to be, allocated to another team. And I think that's where the gripe from the PSL comes from.
Okay.
To say this decision is likely to create unintended consequences, in the sense that it creates a particular precedence which PSL might have to follow, and which, in their view, they think they might not be able to sustain going forward.
All right. Hold it
now, and that is where the protestation comes from the PSL's perspective.
Yeah, I hold it there. I was asking that, what is the general practice in world football?
Yeah, look, I think let's rather confine it within GladAfrica and PSL, because if you say in world football, you might maybe invite me to go to the German league or to the, you know, and I haven't had an opportunity to get into their rules of how to deal with
this. Maybe that's the homework that we should embark on and see. In the world football, if they deduct 3 points from one team, do they award to the opponent on that day, or do they just did what the PSL did? So, but
let me, you see, that question that you are raising, it's one of the issues that were actually articulated by Senior Counsel Mpofu. When he was advancing arguments, and let me just quote what Senior Counsel said, but I'll get to that later. What Senior Counsel Mpofu said, and I quote, he said, "You may well end up winning the match 5-0. Okay, I think I'm not quoting the correct paragraph, and let me just quickly have a look at the paragraph.
Senior Counsel Advocate Mpofu was representing who there?
He was representing one of the parties. That's why I said to you, I'll come back to that at a later stage. But I wanted to just highlight this argument in terms of the submissions that he made before the judge. I'll get to that, but he's actually dealing with that very same aspect that you are dealing with. But now remember, let's go back to where we were. 2nd January, the match gets played. 12th May, there's a disciplinary committee outcome from the first disciplinary committee, deducting 3 points. That's the 12th of May. 19th May, Sekhukhune are not happy. They flag the issue. The PSL disciplinary committee constitute again under the chairpersonship of Senior Counsel Epstein. He deducts the points and then he awards them to Sekhukhune United. 21st May, PSL released a statement. They criticize Senior Counsel's Epstein's ruling for those reasons that I have already explained to you. 23 May, the last fixtures, if you remember, that was the date when the last fixtures at last GladAfrica were played. If you recall, Royal AM on that day, they drew their final league game. They were playing against Cape Town United, if you recall. Now, that scenario, what it created now is that it left them with 51 points. And then Sekhukhune United, on the same day, they beat JDR Stars 3-1, if you recall. Now, that moved them to 53 points. However, the log was not yet updated. Even now, it has not yet been updated to include the 3 points granted to Sekhukhune in line with Epstein Senior Counsel's ruling. Now, on the same day, on the same 23rd, the PSL announces that the trophy handover for the champions will not take place pending the final resolution to the dispute. So now, instead of awarding a trophy, instead of promoting a team, instead of going ahead with the playoffs, the PSL says, no, that can't happen. Let's wait for this process to be resolved within the dispute resolution mechanisms. Now, the next day, on the 24th of May, now this is very important because this is where litigation starts. On the 24th of May, Polokwane City files an application in the Johannesburg High Court asking for a review and the setting aside of the arbitration decision that awarded Sekhukhune United 3 points. So it's a review application. It is launched by Polokwane City. They are asking the court to set aside and to review the ruling of Senior Counsel Epstein in as far as it awards the 3 points to Sekhukhune United. Now, the first litigation is started by Polokwane City.
Now, before you go any further, what brings Polokwane City to the picture now?
Remember, those points that were deducted from Polokwane City, and they were awarded to Sekhukhune.
Okay.
Now, Polokwane City are a party with material interest in the dispute, because the 3 points were actually deducted from them. And hence they are approaching the South Gauteng High Court, and they are approaching the court on an urgent basis. They file an urgent application seeking a review and the setting aside of the ruling by Epstein Senior Counsel, in as far as it deducted the 3 points from them, awarding them to Sekhukhune.
Yeah.
Ne? That's the first litigation part. Now, that is the 28th of May. On 12 June, Judge Roland Sutherland dismisses Polokwane City's application to have Senior Counsel Epstein's ruling overturned. So, which means Polokwane City loses their case on the 12th of June.
At Gauteng.
Now, in the South Gauteng High Court. Okay. Now, they have lost their case at the review level because the decision of the senior counsel has not been overturned as of the 12th of June. Now, when the PSL receives that judgment, they then update the GladAfrica log. They update it because pursuant to a judgment, in compliance with the judgment, so that they should not be found to be foul of a judgment of the court and make themselves guilty of maybe contempt proceedings and whatsoever. They then update the log to show that Sekhukhune United are at the top of the table. Ne? And therefore, it's a team that has to be automatically promoted in line with the judgment. Because remember now, senior counsel's Epstein's ruling has been confirmed by the court, by the High Court. Now, on 13 June, the day after the PSL has updated its log, Royal AM announces their intention to appeal the ruling by Judge Sutherland. Remember, Judge Sutherland refused to set aside and to review the decision of Senior Counsel Epstein.
Yes.
Now, Royal AM are aggrieved by that decision. Now, on the 13th, after the PSL had updated their log, Royal AM announces their intention to appeal the ruling of Judge Sutherland. Now, what Royal AM, and you need to listen to this carefully, what Royal AM do is they file papers, they file an appeal, and then simultaneously with the appeal, they file an urgent interdict. They ask the court to interdict the commencement of the playoffs. Because remember, after the PSL have updated their log, what they then did is that they instructed the teams to start preparing, and they gave them a date to commence with the playoffs. Now, what Royal AM asked the court to do is to interdict the playoffs. I know you'll ask in the same way as you've been asking, and I'm anticipating that question, to say you'll ask, now how does Royal AM get involved in this whole picture? You know, so let me answer that question in advance. Royal AM, remember, if this whole thing of the awarding of the 3 points to Sekhukhune had not happened, Royal AM would have been at the top of the table If you recall, I just gave you an example in terms of the points because they were at 51 points. Now the awarding of 3 points to Sekhukhune place them at 53. But if you remove the 3 points, Sekhukhune are left with 50, and Royal AM are now 51, and they will be the log leaders, and they should be automatically promoted. Now, that is how now Royal AM comes into the picture. Now, they have a material interest in the dispute. They are affected by the results of the dispute. So they are within their right to enter into the fray. Now, and I'm going to just briefly give you what the requirements of an interdict are. You know, for an interdict to be granted, there are certain requirements. One of, in fact, is 3 requirements. The first requirement is that there must be a prima facie right, even if such right is subject to doubt, even if it is doubtful. But as long as you can show the court that you have a prima facie right, that's the first requirement that you must meet. The second requirement is that you must have a reasonable apprehension of irreparable and imminent harm to that particular right. And that if the interdict is not granted, you will suffer, you know, irreparable harm. Now, the third one being there must be a balance of convenience, and the balance of convenience must favor the granting of the interdict. There's a reason why I'm taking you through these requirements, because
I want those requirements, outline them. Give us.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, for example, a prima facie right in respect of Royal AM is that what is likely to happen if the decision of senior counsel Epstein is effected is that they are not going to be promoted. And whereas had that decision not been made in the manner that it was made by senior counsel Epstein, they would have been promoted. So that's a prima facie right, you know. And irreparable harm is to an extent that if that decision is not reversed, it means ultimately they are not going to be promoted. So the harm is irreparable. And the balance of convenience must favor them, you know, to say if they don't approach the court, for example, seeking that particular relief, and if that relief is not granted, they will suffer that harm in any case. So the balance of convenience is favorable on their side, you know. Now, what happened is that, which is very important, is that an urgent application, interdict that Royal AM sought from the court was granted. The relief that Royal AM sought from the court was granted. It was granted on the 14th of June. And the playoffs were interdicted by the court order, pending the outcome of their appeal. Remember, I said that they lodged 2 processes.
Yeah, 2 processes.
It was to interdict the playoffs, whilst the appeal process was pending. Now, what is now pending is the appeal process, but the playoffs, as we speak, have been interdicted by the court. Now, and I'll explain to you why they had to go the interdict route. There's you see, if you read the Supreme Court Act, there's a section, there's section 18 of the Supreme Court Act. It specifically states that, for example, if a party wishes to appeal a judgment, the fact that we are appealing the judgment does not suspend the operation of that judgment. And I'll explain it with the perspective of what is happening at PSL. If Royal AM were to appeal the decision of the High Court without seeking
interdiction,
an interim interdict, it means the playoffs would have continued. because the fact that they have lodged an appeal does not suspend the operation of the judgment of the High Court. So hence they decided wisely to request for an interdict. Ne? But now there's something that is confusing. Ne? Subsequent to that, on the 15th of June, ne, the PSL then announces that it will appeal the interdict on the playoffs that was granted by Judge Nyati. Ne? The interdict that was granted in favor of Royal AM. Now the PSL is entering the fray. They are saying, we are going to appeal that particular interdict. Ne? Now I'm confused, and I'll tell you why I'm confused. Because you see, with court interdicts, you know, you have what they call interim court interdict, and then you have a final court interdict. Ne? Now, I'm not sure, because I have not had sight of the interdict that was granted for Royal AM. But I think it's important that I must state this for the benefit of the viewers, to say, when a party approaches the court seeking an interdict, ne, normally interdicts are interim orders, giving another party an opportunity at the return date to state reasons why the interim interdict should not be made a final interdict.
Okay.
They call it rule nisi, rule nisa. What it means is that you approach the court and you say, court, please grant me this order temporarily until the other party comes within 2 weeks to explain why this order that you granted me should not be made the final order.
Okay.
Now, what is confusing is, how do you appeal such an order? Because the rules do not make provision for interim interdicts to be appealed against, because you still have an opportunity to make representations during the return date. So that's what is a bit confusing, because when I read in the media that the PSL will appeal the interdict, I really did not understand what kind of process that the PSL is going to embark upon, you know. But obviously, I haven't read most of the papers. I might be confused. You might find that maybe it's a final interdict, but I doubt that it can be a final interdict, because what then does it say to GladAfrica in terms of progressing with the playoffs? You know. Now, subsequent to that, then on the 17th of June, the PSL postpones the playoffs pending the resolution of the dispute. And now this is going on and on and on and on. Now, the process that is currently pending in the courts is that appeal that has been launched by Royal AM, you know. So far, I'm not aware of any other party having lodged any particular, you know, papers in respect of pursuing any particular, you know, relief with the courts. So that's why we are. I think we need to await the outcome of that appeal, and then perhaps maybe wait for the return date and see if maybe the other parties will make representations in respect of that interim interdict that has been granted in favor of Royal AM.
Okay.
Advocate,
So
I've got a
that's
question.
short, yeah.
You mentioned that SC Epstein, he took a decision to dock 3 points and gave them to Polokwane, I mean to
That is correct,
Sekhukhune.
yes. Yes.
And then according to the NSL book rule, you said it's quiet. It doesn't
It's
say where
silent, yeah.
those 3 points should go to.
Yeah.
So what gave him the right to decide that he gives it to Polokwane without having any indication or any clause that he can be able to refer to?
Yeah, you see, that one is a difficult question, because remember, if you are not sitting in the proceedings and you don't get sight of the evidence that the parties are presenting before Senior Counsel Epstein, you might not be able to indicate exactly what was in Senior Counsel Epstein's mind for him to come to that particular decision. You know, you might find, for example, that he made reference to certain authority, which I don't have sight, you know, of. You might find that maybe the FIFA rules allowed that to happen, and then maybe he made reference to the rules in terms of FIFA, and then, you know, because I mean, if you recall, there was also an argument from the PSL to say Senior Counsel Epstein applied the FIFA rules over and above those of the NSL handbook, and therefore he should not have done that. He exceeded his powers, etc., etc. So there might be some point of reference for him to be able to come at that particular decision. But as of now, I'm unable to, you know, pinpoint exactly what motivated him into coming into such a decision.
But while we're still there, SAFA did not play any role as far as this court case is concerned. They said,
which one?
They never joined the courts as friends of the courts or whatever. They were like on the side, SAFA, the mother body.
Or SAFA, I think they also went along with the PSL in respect of, because remember the main gripe here is that the PSL are not particularly happy with the decision of Senior Counsel Epstein, which decision has ultimately been confirmed by the High Court, you know. So SAFA have always been on the side of the PSL in terms of this issue, you know. So although SAFA are not particularly a party to the proceedings, but I think from what I've gathered so far, they support, you know, the views that are expressed by the PSL in this whole pandemonium and fracas.
But let's get some clarity here, Advocate, because if I remember quite well, SAFA at some point was arguing that the decision of arbitration is final, right at the beginning of the matter.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Hence I'm saying
that in itself, it was not in line with what SAFA wanted. I mean, with what PSL wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want a bit of a clarity when you say SAFA always have been in the corner of PSL. But if I remember quite well, right at the beginning, when PSL referred matter to SAFA, then SAFA said, no, the arbitration decision is final. And they aligned themselves with that. So, which for me was confirming that they were in contradictory with the PSL.
Yeah, look, I might be mistaken in that regard, but from what I gathered, my preliminary view was that I think that SAFA were in support of the PSL. But now that we are clarifying it in respect of what you are saying, I'm inclined to agree with that kind of a perspective. To say if that indeed is what SAFA said, because I did not get sight of that kind of info, then I think they are on the right side of things, because I mean, in terms of the NSL handbook itself, it states in no uncertain terms that the decision of the disciplinary committee of the PSL is final and binding, you know. And if you recall, I don't know if I also reflected on that, but I think I did, that Sekhukhune United themselves approached the court requesting for the court to confirm the decision of Senior Counsel Epstein and to declare it as final and binding as well, you know. And that was done at the Johannesburg High Court.
Yes.
No, you know what I wanted a clarity on. So that is why SAFA did not join anybody as the friends of the court. Because my understanding is SAFA, according to SAFA, this thing has been going according to the principle that they've adopted right from the beginning.
Okay.
So that is why SAFA did not join any of the party to be friends of the
Which is a good thing, yes, yes.
So I just wanted us to clarify that one. And
thank you.
that has been clarified. The other thing that I want us to deal with. Now, here comes the playoff plate. And Chippa United won. Royal AM was supposed to go and play Chippa United. Well, according to media, Royal AM did travel to the ground, but they didn't partake. They didn't take any part. They decided not to participate. And we saw that the boss of Royal AM, you know what?
Yeah.
I have a clip where she did a social media clip, the boss of Royal AM.
Yeah.
Emphasizing her position that they are not going to play any games. Now, there was a rollover whereby Royal AM lost 3-0. All right, because they didn't partake. Now, I don't know where this is going to end. I just want to bring the picture of what is happening now, because I'm sure, unless the court comes in, I'm sure Chippa United would say, we want that 3 points. I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm just sharing where we are now.
Yeah.
And then what is the status of what you call the status of the playoffs, the whole fracas. All right. And then while I'm still there, I would say I had a discussion with Ndate Singimunisi, of which I'm not going to share because it was between the two friends. He said the matter is sub judice, which is a proper way of doing it, because I wanted him to come and outline exactly what's happening. So we'll see what's going to happen. So that's the picture that I wanted to paint for now, to say, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something before Advocate comes in? Do you want to say something? Because it looks like
No, I think
it's really complicated now. Jackie?
Yeah, it's very difficult. Yeah, it's very difficult right now to ask some questions because the case is still going on. So some of the questions just have to reserve them until at a later stage, For an example, the second rollout. I mean, the second game, which was yesterday, the other day, they didn't pitch up as well on the second game. It was another 3-0 game. So in the future, what if the court comes and say, you were given an opportunity to play, you should have played under protest, you didn't take that opportunity. So therefore, your case is dismissed with cost. Possibilities are there. That's why I'm saying it's a bit difficult for me to answer, to ask other questions, because looking at the court, that is the case that is still pending at the moment. I don't know. I don't know, Advocate, if I'm making sense.
No, if you recall, remember just to put it into perspective, remember we just highlighted now that Royal AM as an interested party, they approached the court seeking an interdict, and they were granted an interdict. And what is the legal effect of the interdict? The effect is that the playoffs have been halted, so the playoffs can't take place in terms of that interdict. Now, if any team were to proceed with the playoffs, it means they are in contempt
of
that court order, and there are consequences for that. So the playoffs can continue in the circumstances where there's an order of the court that has halted them, So that order of the court remains binding until such time that it is reversed, by the court. So the wise thing for parties to do currently is not to continue with the playoffs, because such playoffs have been interdicted, in line with the relief that was sought by Royal AM.
Advocate,
Yeah.
you have explained it very beautifully. And I don't want us to spoil it, Jackie. Remember, we are edutainment program. We are educating, giving people information. So we're just giving people, exposing people to information. And then they can make their own judgment, Like Advocate has said, if there's interdict, why do you continue playoffs? We don't know. And then they may come that we have appealed. We don't know. Let's allow the process to unfold. But Advocate, it was well explained, and then we'll follow this case and see where it ends, and then we'll come again and give our viewers information. Viewers, you got it yourself, and then you can ask questions so that next time when you Advocate comes, probably after maybe another process, and then we'll also put those questions. And then you'll see at the end of the show, there is a banner with our WhatsApp number. Just drop your questions there, and please continue to subscribe. And I can see that the number is increasing. Thank you very much. We are humbled by the fact that you guys are increasing the number. Jackie, I've seen your hand. I don't know whether you want to ask questions, but
Yes. So it's just an emphasis on something. Advocate, you mentioned that the 3 requirements of a court interdict. Maybe if you can also repeat a little bit shortly, so that we can be able to remember that those 3 requirements of a court interdict.
One is that there must be a prima facie right.
Okay.
The first one is that there must be a prima facie right, and even if there is doubt in respect of that right, as long as a party to litigation can prove that they have a prima facie right. The second one is that there must be an apprehension. There must be an apprehension on the part of the litigant that that particular imminent right is likely to be infringed upon, And if an interdict is not granted, it definitely will be infringed upon. The third one is that there must be a balance of convenience, and the balance of convenience must favor the party that is seeking the interdict. And I can tell you now that perhaps the mere fact that Royal AM were granted an order shows that they have actually proven to the court that they satisfy those requirements of interdict, which I have just summarized before you, because I doubt that the court would grant an interdict in the absence of a demonstration of those particular requirements, because that has to happen before an interdict can be granted. So I think they have proven that they have a prima facie right, and that they have an apprehension of possibility of infringement of that right if the interdict is not granted, and that the balance of convenience favors their side.
Advocate,
hence the interdict was granted. Yes.
Thank you very much. Jackie,
Thank you,
I allow that to continue, but we're not supposed to allow it. We're supposed to stop because remember, we need to look at the time. I thought that probably you'll go back to the recording and listen to the 3 requirements. But Advocate, that was well explained. And then thank you very much for joining us and explain this. We learn every day. And I'm sure our viewers also, they learn every day. As much as it's sport, it's entertainment, but it's business at the same time. So that is why it's part of the big R. We are dealing with money and business. So it's business at the end of it all. Advocate, thank you very much. And then you may bid farewell to our viewers. And then
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you to the viewers. Good morning. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Until we meet again next time.
Thank you, Advocate.
Thank you, Advocate. Cheers, man.
Jackie?
Shut down.
Bid the viewers farewell?
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for supporting us as the viewers. And thank you very much once more. We will meet again very soon.
Thank you.